Hare Krishna. So shall we start with a Jai Radha Madhava? Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayom Vishnupad Paramhansa Parivrajacharya Ashtottara Satra His Divine Grace Abhay Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Gokul Anand Ki Jai Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Mai Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories, all glories, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Hare Krishna. So, is someone going to take care of the discipline of everybody muting the microphones?
Yes, Maharaj, we will do that, Maharaj.
So, yeah, when people enter and leave, it should, and the background noise shouldn't come.
Sure.
So, I'm very happy to be with all of you. Hare Krishna. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, Maharaj.
Not audible. Somebody says not audible.
Yeah, Maharaj, now it's clear. It was still low now before, now it is fine.
Okay. So, this lecture is specially at the request of the devotees from Bahrain. Of course, on Facebook there are devotees from other places attending too. So, to all of you, I wish you good health and very happy Krishna consciousness. In this lockdown period and in the midst of this pandemic, you are all healthy and taking the required precautions. I also hope that you are able to utilize the opportunity of the lockdown for progressing well in your Krishna devotion. Now, since these lectures are basically for devotees, so I'm sure that you are all aware that there are 5 primary rasas in which the individual living entity relates to the Supreme Lord, and each jiva has a particular mukhya rasa, primary rasa, in which he or she relates. Adbhuta rasa, the rasa of astonishment, of wonder, etc. And then there is the Veera rasa, the rasa of chivalry. And there are other such rasas. There is the Karuna rasa, the Raudra rasa, Bhayanaka rasa, Bibhatsa rasa. So all in all, 7 Gauna rasas. Now these 7 Gauna rasas don't stay permanently. Each of these rasas come and go according to the situation, and they nourish the particular mukhya rasa in which a devotee is situated. So let's say there are the cowherd boys, and they are wrestling with each other or with Krishna. So they're engaging in the Veera rasa, the rasa of chivalry. So it is enhancing, it is sweetening their Sakhya rasa. Their love in friendship to Krishna becomes deeper and sweeter, because they are now relishing that Veer rasa, the rasa of chivalry, or being a valiant hero. Yes? Now, as I have emphasized in previous lectures, it must be very clear in our mind that all these rasas that we are talking about are on the platform of pure love for Krishna, on the platform of pure attachment to Krishna. We also see these rasas existing in the material world, but they exist in mundane form, on the material platform. They are the perverted distortions or the reflections of the original rasas that exist in the spiritual world. So we are not talking about these mundane rasas. We are talking about bhakti rasas. So earlier in the series of lectures, I have been talking about hasya rasa, then I spoke about adbhuta rasa, and I also, in one lecture, the previous lecture, I introduced the idea of the Veera rasa. And in that lecture, I basically introduced the concept of the Veera rasa, gave some examples from the material world, and how Veera rasa can also be found in the 3 modes of material nature, and how it is also found on the transcendental platform. Now, all these rasas, whether hasya, adbhuta, Veera, etc., will have their material reflections or their material equivalents. For example, hasya rasa. There can be hasya rasa in the mode of ignorance, hasya rasa in the mode of passion, or in the mode of goodness. And there is hasya rasa on the transcendental platform of devotion to Krishna. Similarly with adbhuta rasa. And now with Veera rasa. So last time I gave a kind of a background or an introduction to the concept of the Veera rasa as found in the material world, and also some introduction about the Veera rasa in various pastimes of the great devotees of the Lord. For example, we spoke about Bhishma Dev's fighting with Krishna and enabling Krishna to taste the Veera rasa. And I also described how in the Vaikuntha world, Veera rasa is pretty much absent, because there is no one there who will fight with Lord Narayan. Because in Vaikuntha, the Lord is worshipped in a spirit of awe and reverence. So you cannot fight with someone when you have that kind of a mood. So in either in Dasya ras or in Sakhya ras or in any ras, there is not much of you can hardly find the Veera rasa in the Vaikuntha world. So Lord Narayan descends into this material world, as he did after cursing Jay, and after Jay and Vijay were cursed by the 4 Kumaras by the Lord's plan. The Lord descended here in his various avatars and relished the Veera rasa and killed the great demons like Hiranyakashipu, Hiranyaksha, Narsimha, and Ravana, Kumbhakarna, etc. So the Veer Rasa and all these rasas that are relished in Goloka Vrindavana, in contrast, are exceptionally sweet. They are all present, all the 5 of these Mukhya rasas, and not so much the Shanta. Shanta is there, but to some very limited degree. But the 7 rasas, the secondary rasas are all there, and they exist in great sweetness and intimacy. So, for example, the cowherd boys, they engage in mock fighting with Krishna, just as little boys will do. Even in the material world, boys will fight with each other, wrestle with each other, so this is a mundane rasa in the mundane Sakhya rasa. So similarly, Rupa Goswami is describing in this section on the Veer Rasa in the Nectar of Devotion, Yuddha Bhakti Rasa, or rather Veera Bhakti Rasa, which means the Bhakti Rasa that is born out of a sense of chivalry or being a hero. And it is all in connection with Krishna. Krishna is the center of all this. It is either done personally, directly in relation to Krishna, or perhaps in Krishna's presence for the sake of Krishna's happiness and pleasure. So, Rupa Goswami mentions that there are 4 kinds of such valiant heroes, who relish the Veer Rasa. Now here when you talk of Veer Bhakti Rasa, you are speaking of the devotees. The devotees who in connection with Krishna are relishing this Veer Rasa, and they also enable Krishna to relish it. So he speaks of 4 kinds of valiant heroes. So they are all relishing the Veera Rasa, the Veera Bhakti Rasa. The first one is called the Yuddha Veera. The Yuddha Veera is one who relishes the Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa. And he relishes it in battle, in fighting. The word Yuddha means battle or war or fighting. And then there is what is called the Dana Veera, one who relishes the Veer Rasa in giving charity. Then there is the Daya Veera. Daya Veera is one who experiences the Veera Bhakti Rasa by showing extraordinary compassion in some way. And finally, there is the Dharma Veera, one who relishes the Veera Rasa by engaging in some dharmic activity, in some religious activity for the satisfaction of Krishna. So remember that all these 4 involve some degree of chivalry, some degree of heroism, and they are all in connection with Krishna. They are all for Krishna's pleasure, and they are all performed on the platform of pure love for Krishna. So with this background, let us discuss how Srila Prabhupada describes it here, and also we'll make a few comments from the original text of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. So we will relish in particular the Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa to start with. Now it is important to note that here in the Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa, almost entirely, except for 1 or 2 examples, Rupa Goswami has described instances from Vrindavan, where the cowherd boys fight either amongst each other or against Krishna in mock battle. And in this way they enjoy the rasa of chivalry. So the rasa of chivalry also makes things more exciting for the boys. Sometimes they laugh, sometimes they fight, sometimes they express wonder and astonishment, sometimes they become very compassionate. So they go through all these moods, And in experiencing them, their love for Krishna just becomes very, very sweet. So let's talk about the Yuddha Veeras who actually act out of a feeling of Yuddhotsaha. Utsaha means enthusiasm. Yuddha means battle. So the Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa is experienced by those who have intense enthusiasm to engage in battle. So here in this section of Yuddha Veera, the examples, as I mentioned, are the cowherd boys of Vrindavan. So it is not that kind of a serious battle that, let's say, Lord Vishnu has, Lord Nrsimhadev or Lord Ramachandra has with the demons when they come here, when they actually kill the demons. Here, remember, it is the devotees who are fighting against Krishna, and it is in mock fight, or they are fighting amongst each other. Okay, so we have to keep that in mind. Now, Srila Rupa Goswami mentions that there are two types of Yuddha Veeras, or two types of situations in which the Yuddha Veeras fight and engage and relish this Bhakti Rasa. One is when they see Krishna directly as an opponent, so they fight with Krishna. The other is when they fight with some other cowherd boy, and it is in the presence of Krishna. Krishna is a spectator, and Krishna is enjoying, he's relishing that particular mock battle that goes on here. Yes? So, Srila Prabhupada mentions here, giving an example of the first type of Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa, in which Krishna is directly the opponent. So I'm reading from Nectar of Devotion. A friend once challenged Krishna thus, "My dear Madhava, you are very restless because you think that no one can defeat you. But if you do not flee from here, then I shall show you how I can defeat you. And my friends will be very satisfied to see this." So this kind of mood the cowherd boys can have in Vrindavan. But in Vaikuntha, no one can speak to Lord Narayan like this. That is just not the mood. In Vaikuntha, the mood towards Lord Narayan is full of love, undoubtedly. Otherwise, they would not be there. But this love is tinged quite a bit with the mood of awe and reverence. So it is quite not possible for the devotee to come to this level of familiarity and speak to Krishna in this kind of an insolent or what may seem like an arrogant way. Yes? But remember, this is not ordinary arrogance of this world that comes out of the material mode of ignorance and passion. This is just on the pure loving platform towards Krishna. So here we see that one cowherd boy is challenging Madhava or Krishna. Don't run away from here. Just stay here and fight, and I will show you how I can defeat you. And all the friends will be very satisfied to see this. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, when Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami talks about the advent of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he also mentions the special status of Vrindavan with respect to any other abode of the Lord, especially the Vaikuntha world. Because, as I mentioned earlier, in Vrindavan, there is this mood of intimacy and familiarity. There is absolutely no inhibition. There is no restraint. There is no barrier. Anything goes in Vrindavan. So Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says that Krishna is thinking in such a way that Mora Putra Mora Sakha Mora Pranapati E Bhave Jai More Kore Shuddha Bhakti. He's saying for those E Bhave, in the mood, which mood? Considering Krishna to be Mora Putra, my son, or Mora Sakha, or my friend, or Mora Pranapati, my life and soul, my lover, etc. those who perform Shuddha Bhakti to me in this bhava, apana ke bodo mane amar samahina, shei bhave hoi ami tahara adhina. For those devotees who, considering me to be their son or their friend or their lover, and they render devotional service to me in this mood, and especially considering themselves to be either equal to me or bigger than me, apana ke bodo mane amar samahina. They think themselves better than me, bigger than me, stronger than me, wiser than me, that Krishna needs my protection, that I am stronger than Krishna, etc. So they think of Krishna sama or hina. Sama means equal, hina means inferior. So out of pure love, it cannot be compared to anything in this world. So out of pure love, when the devotee thinks himself or herself to be either equal to or greater than Krishna, then Shei Bhave Hoi Ami Tahara Adhina. Because of that bhava, because of that mood of their devotion, I become completely subordinate to them. I become subservient to them. So Krishna actually relishes this love more than he relishes the love of his devotees when that love is offered in a mood of awe and reverence. So when the devotees worship him with Purusha Sukta prayers and by folded hands, kneeling down before him, etc., in that bhava, yes, of course, Krishna is pleased, definitely, and he showers his mercy on those devotees. But the kind of pleasure that he experiences, something has happened here. What has happened? Something.
So somebody by mistake shared the screen, Maharaj. Now it's okay.
Okay. So please, everybody, sit just peacefully. It distracts the flow. Don't make any changes, and you just sit quietly and peacefully, and let us all relish nectar of devotion. So where was I? So I was mentioning that Krishna relishes this love in Vrindavan much more when the devotees consider him to be equal or consider him to be inferior. Now, in the material world also there are people who consider themselves equal to or greater than Krishna. But that sort of a mentality that is found amongst non-devotees in the material world is born out of ignorance, out of foolishness, and out of the sense of false ego in the mode of ignorance and passion. So that kind of mood can only lead to destruction. It cannot lead to anything auspicious. Neither is it pleasing to Krishna. Yes? So, Kaviraj Goswami goes on to say, Mata more putra bhave kore na bandhana, atihina gyane kore lalana palana. So he gives the example of Mother Yashoda. Mata more putra bhave, that Mata means my mother, putra bhave means understanding or thinking me to be the son, kore na bandhana. So she ties me up sometimes, thinking me to be her son. And atihina gyane kore lalana palana. And she looks after me. Lalana palana means she, coddles me sometimes, takes good care of me, all that, thinking me to be very helpless and needing of my protection and care. So this is the situation of Mother Yashoda in Vrindavan. And then he goes on to talk about the cowherd boys. And he says, Sakha Shuddha Sakhya Kore Skandhe Arohana, Tumi Kon Bodolo, Tumi Ami Sama. So he says, Sakha, the cowherd boys, Shuddha Sakhya, in the pure rasa of friendship with me in Vrindavan, Kore Skandhe Arohana. Arohan means to climb. Skandha means the shoulders. So my friends in Vrindavan, out of a mood of pure friendship with me, they sometimes climb onto my shoulders. And then they say, Tumi kon bodo lok? What kind of big person are you? Tumi ami sama. You and I are the same. We are all equal. You are nothing special, Krishna. We are all the same. What to speak of same, sometimes some friends like Madhu Mangal will also tell him, just remember, it is only because of my Brahmanical chanting of mantras and prowess that you have been able to kill all these asuras. So don't become puffed up thinking you have killed all these asuras. Without blessings of Brahmanas like me, you will not be able to do anything. And Krishna relishes those kinds of statements. Yes? So this is the mood of Vrindavan. This is what Krishna really loves. It gives him maximum pleasure. Of course, these things cannot be artificially and cheaply imitated by us. This happens spontaneously and naturally on a certain kind of advanced platform of Krishna consciousness. But for us to hear about these things and hear about this mood and in our mind try to cultivate it is something very relishable and very much part of the program that Srila Prabhupada created for all of us. So coming back to the Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa. So the cowherd boys and their fighting with Krishna is to be understood in this mood, right, that I just mentioned with the background from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we saw the first instance of Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa being relished by a devotee, a cowherd boy in Vrindavan, who challenges Krishna that don't run away from here. You know, you better fight with me. I will show you my prowess. I will show you how strong I am. And all our friends will be very pleased to see my valor. So this is an instance of a devotee, a cowherd boy, fighting with Krishna directly. And there is another instance that is mentioned here, where Krishna is directly the opponent. I'll read out. Krishna and Sridama were very intimate friends. Yet, Sridama, out of anger with Krishna, challenged him. When both of them began to fight, all the friends on the bank of the Yamuna enjoyed the wonderful fighting of the two friends. Yes? So remember, this is an occasion of joy for everyone. There is a certain excitement that comes and also a certain joy. So this is different from the case where a devotee fights a demon. You know, where a devotee fights a demon, at that time, it's not that everyone around is sitting and enjoying happiness. There is anger, there is bibhatsa, there is bhayanaka, there is all sorts of these things, raudra, anger that comes up. Because when you're fighting a war in the material world, then you have to get angry. You cannot fight without being angry. So when a devotee is fighting non-devotees or demoniac people, that mood there, that Veer Rasa there is mixed with various other things. Whereas here Rupa Goswami is describing essentially Veer Rasa among the cowherd boy friends, where those who are watching also enjoy great bliss. Not only does Krishna enjoy it and the devotees fighting with him enjoy it, but the others also enjoy it. And then the other type of Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa is when Krishna is a spectator. Or Krishna may also participate, but he is watching. And here Srila Prabhupada mentions, I'll read. They prepared some arrows for mock fighting. And Krishna began to throw his arrows at Sridama. Sridama began to block these arrows by whirling his pole. And by Sridama's chivalrous activities, Krishna became very satisfied. Such mock fighting generally takes place among chivalrous persons and creates wonderful excitement for all viewers. So just imagine the scene. All the cowherd boys are gathering around. Okay, and Krishna also. And they are shooting mock arrows at Sridama. And Sridama is exhibiting his valor, his heroism. And how is he protecting himself and warding off all the arrows? He's swinging his pole. He has a little some stick, and he's whirling it around. And all the arrows are fended off by the swift movement of his pole. So those who are familiar with martial arts and all that, you know that there are such techniques of stick fighting and so on and so forth. And sometimes these people who are expert in stick fighting, they are so expert that they can even ward off arrows that are shot at them. So here Sri Dhamma was demonstrating such valor and expertise and warding off the mock arrows that were fired by their friends. And Krishna was really marveling at the skill. And there was excitement all around. Then Rupa Goswami mentions that sometimes it so happens that devotees who are in the same camp also fight amongst themselves. Sometimes the cowherd boys, they make camps, your group, my group, and the two groups fight with each other and enjoy bhakti vira rasa, vira bhakti rasa. But sometimes it happens in their own group also. And this is one example where Rupa Goswami cites from the Harivansha, speaking of Arjuna, the son of Kunti. And he says here that sometimes Arjuna and Krishna fought in the presence of Kunti, and Arjuna would be defeated by Krishna. Of course, it was mock fighting, it was loving fighting, and otherwise Kunti Maharani would not have just remained silent. If it was serious fighting, she would definitely have intervened and tried to stop it. Yes? And then Srila Rupa Goswami mentions something, a term that is important, that comes up often in Nectar of Devotion or Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. It is called Uddipana. Uddipana refers to some kind of an impetus or a stimulus, something that eggs us on to do something. You know? For example, there was a great Babaji devotee around the time of Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur respected him a lot. His name was Vansidas Babaji. So whenever he would see the cloud, the dark cloud, immediately he would think of Krishna. So here, the dark cloud served as the impetus for him to remember Krishna. Or when somebody would say the word government, then he would think of Govardhan. So immediately he would be in ecstasy thinking of Govardhan. So the word government became an impetus for him to think of Krishna and Krishna Leela and Govardhan in particular. So similarly, even for the Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa, there are some impetuses, some things that shall we say, provoke you to develop that kind of a rasa. So Srila Prabhupada mentions that here. He says, in such chivalrous fighting between friends, there is sometimes bragging, complacence, pride, power, taking to weapons, challenging, and standing as an opponent. All of these symptoms become impetuses to chivalrous devotional service. Okay, so sometimes you may just go and stand in front of an enemy, say, yes, now fight with me. Or sometimes you may go to somebody and brag about your prowess, and you may demean the other person and criticize that other person as being a coward, you know. And in this way you may provoke the other person to fight with you. Of course, in mundane rasa we find that happening. I'm sure we've all met people who are provocative by nature and who will provoke you to fight and argue with them. So human nature is of infinite variety. So now we will have examples here of different types of these uddipanas or provocations. One example to start with actually, and that is bragging. So boasting. So Srila Prabhupada mentions it like this. One friend challenged Krishna thus, "My dear friend Damodar, you are an expert only in eating. You have defeated Subala only because he is weak and you adopted cheating means. Don't advertise yourself to be a great fighter by such action. You have advertised yourself as a serpent, and I am the peacock who will now defeat you." So this is what this friend says when he's challenging Krishna. And Prabhupada comments here that the peacock is the ablest enemy of the serpent. So this friend is mocking Krishna, provoking him also in response to something that Krishna must have done. And he's saying, "Krishna, you are no good. You can only eat, that's all. And you can only cheat. So whatever so-called victories you have attained in your fights with Sridama or Subal rather, it's only because of cheating. But now I will show you what real fighting is. If you think you're a great serpent, I am the peacock. And I will put you in place." So this kind of bhakti vira rasa is being relished in Vrindavan. Many times some people who don't understand what Vrindavan is about, or even what Vaikuntha is about for that matter, they are puzzled about what happens when the devotee goes back to the spiritual world. There are many who are impersonalists who believe that the soul merges into the impersonal Brahmajyoti, and then the soul finds eternal peace. And when they hear about the Vaikuntha planets or Goloka Vrindavan, and there the devotees go and engage in pastimes with the Lord, they are bewildered, they are baffled by this, and they just don't understand what this means. And they say, what would you do when you went to such a place? You'll just sit there and do what? So the answer is given in scriptures like the Nectar of Devotion. Here are some of the things that the cowherd boys do. The cowherd boys, every day they go out for grazing cows with Krishna. That is Krishna's eternal occupation in Goloka Vrindavan. And so the cowherd boys accompany him. That is something they do every day. Then when they are in the forest, they play all sorts of games. And some of this mock fighting also happens when they're out there grazing in the forest. So they engage in all these wonderful, blissful pastimes there. So there's no shortage of activities in the spiritual world. Therefore, those who are impersonalists and materialists, they just cannot understand why the devotees are reading what appears to them to be just fanciful fairy tales, some imaginary stories and so on. So one has to understand and hear these stories through the eye of faith and devotion. Then, sometimes fighting can happen not necessarily because one has been provoked by somebody else, but because the fighting spirit or the provocative spirit has emerged within one's own heart. So when the Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa arises in somebody, because of the feelings of wanting to fight within his own heart, that is called Anubhava, as opposed to Uddipana, where it is provoked by something or someone else. So Anubhava is when it is provoked by oneself. So Srila Prabhupada says it like this: in such fighting between friends, when the self-advertisement becomes personal, learned scholars say that it is sub-ecstasy. The word sub-ecstasy here is Anubhava. When there is a roaring challenge, that means one cowherd boy comes in front of Krishna and roars in challenge. Or certain kinds of movement for fighting, enthusiasm, no weapons, and assurance given to frightened witnesses, all these chivalrous activities are called sub-ecstasy or Anubhava. So again, how boasting can be done to provoke the other person to fight. This is an example given here. So Srila Prabhupada says, one friend addressed Krishna in this manner: "My dear Madhusudan, you know my strength. You are encouraging Bhadrasen and not me to challenge the mighty Baladev. By this action, you are simply insulting me because my arms are as strong as the bolts of the gate." So here, one cowherd boy is feeling offended because, Krishna, you don't know how strong I am. My arms are as strong as the bolts of a mighty gate. And instead of asking me to fight Baladeva, who is very powerful, you are asking Bhadrasen, another devotee. Don't you know how strong I am? So in this way, this devotee, this cowherd boy, is provoking Krishna and is boasting about his own prowess. And here is another example of not boasting, but of roaring like a lion. A devotee once said, "My dear Krishna, may your challenger Sridama become glorious for his chivalrous activities, such as vibrating like a thundercloud and roaring like a lion. May all glories go to Sridama's chivalrous activities." So one friend is glorifying Sridama, because when Sridama steps into battle, so to speak, amongst the cowherd boys, then sometimes he vibrates, makes vibrating sounds like a thundercloud. Sometimes he roars like a lion. So this cowherd boy is appreciating the valor of, or the Yuddha Veera, Bhakti Rasa of Sridama. Then Rupa Goswami mentions that generally the Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa is found in people who have the enthusiasm to fight. It's called Yuddhotsaha. Yuddha and Utsaha. Utsaha means enthusiasm. So there is Yuddhotsaha. Sometimes this Yuddhotsaha Rati, this happens when the cowherd boy is fighting alone, or sometimes when he's fighting in a team. Sometimes the cowherd boy is fighting of his own accord, and sometimes the cowherd boy is fighting after he's been provoked by Krishna or by some other cowherd boy. So all these different examples Rupa Goswami gives. It's a rather long section, but I'll just read out briefly. We won't have time today to talk about the other three types of valiant heroes. The Dana Veera, Daya Veera, Dharma Veera. We won't have time for that. So we're just talking of Yuddha Veera. Okay? So, when Stoka Krishna, one of the many friends of Krishna, was fighting with him, his father chastised him for fighting with Krishna, who was the life and soul of all residents of Vrindavan. Upon hearing these chastisements, Stoka Krishna stopped his fighting. But Krishna continued to challenge him, and thus, in order to meet the challenge, Stoka Krishna took his pole and began to display his dexterity by whirling it. So what happened was that Stoka Krishna was fighting with Krishna. Stoka Krishna is the name of another cowherd boy. So he was fighting with Krishna. And suddenly, Stoka Krishna's father came upon the scene. Now, because all the Brajabasis love Krishna more than their own very life, so when Stoka Krishna's father saw his son fighting with Krishna, and he feared for Krishna's safety, that Krishna may get harmed or something. He wasn't so much worried about his son getting harmed, he was more worried about Krishna getting harmed. This is the special characteristic of Vraja, that the Brajabasis, they love Krishna more than they love their own children. So this is a very charming and exceptional feature of Vrindavan. So when Stoka Krishna heard the rebuke from his father, he stopped fighting. But Krishna continued to challenge him and provoke him after Stoka Krishna's father had left. So then Stoka Krishna saw that his father had left, and here Krishna is keeping on provoking me and challenging me. How can I not respond? Then again Stoka Krishna picked up his pole and engaged in chivalrous activities with Krishna by moving his pole around. So this is an example of how Sri Dama is provoked into fighting when he is challenged by Krishna after he has been stopped by his father. In another example, Prabhupada says, Bhadrasen therefore left the party of Balaram and joined Krishna, and he agitated his friends as much as the Mandar hill had agitated the whole ocean. By his roaring sounds he deafened all his friends, and he inspired Krishna with his chivalrous activities. So here is an example of how team fighting happens. The cowherd boy will join one team, and then this team will fight with another team of cowherd boys. So you can see that the cowherd boys constantly have fun. They are just having total 24/7 fun, enjoyment. That is what happens in Goloka Vrindavan. In a Goloka Vrindavan, there is no place for unnecessary anxiety, and there is transcendental anxiety to some degree, yes, but no inebriety that characterizes the material world. There's simply fun and enjoyment on the transcendental platform. Then another example. Once Krishna challenged all his friends and said, "My dear friends, just see, I am jumping with great chivalrous prowess. Please do not flee away." It is now Krishna who is inducing everybody. Come on, just let's fight. See my power. Upon hearing these challenging words, a friend named Varuthapa counter-challenged the Lord and struggled against him. So further fighting happened. It's not that the only thing that the cowherd boys do is fighting, okay? Let's not imagine that the only thing they do is fighting. They also engage in many other kinds of activities, but because we are talking of Yuddha Veera Bhakti Rasa, therefore Rupa Goswami has given us only these instances over here. Once, one of the friends remarked, "Sudama is trying his best to see Damodar defeated, and I think that if our powerful Subal joins him, there will be a very beautiful combination, like a valuable jewel bedecked with gold." Another instance of team fighting given here. And to conclude, Srila Prabhupada says here, in these chivalrous activities, only Krishna's friends can be the opponents. Very important point. I have emphasized that last time and also earlier today. Krishna's enemies can never actually be his opponents. Therefore, this challenging by Krishna's friends is called devotional service in chivalrous activities. Anukulyena, the bhava, the mentality has to be anukul, has to be very favorable. So with this, we conclude the discussion of the first type of valiant heroes. The first type of devotees who relish the Veera Bhakti Rasa, which is the Yuddha Veeras. So the next lecture, whenever it is that I give to whichever audience, then I'll be talking about the other three types of valiant heroes, namely the Dana Veeras, Daya Veeras, and the Dharma Veeras. So I'll stop over here. And the purpose for choosing these topics is to encourage devotees to read this wonderful book, Nectar of Devotion. So many wonderful things mentioned here. Generally for Bhakti Shastri, we go up to the first part. And this is in the last part. So we can try to read that. Maybe I hope you have the nectar of devotion with you. Read the part that we have discussed today. So we'll stop here. Thank you all very much. If there are any questions, then please feel free to ask. Maybe you can type your questions.
Maharaj, somebody has raised the hand, so should we allow?
I think typing is better.
Typing, okay.
The first question that I see here is, could you please give some tips to improve our chanting, especially concentration? Generally, the things I mentioned about chanting are, first of all, pronounce the words of the mantra clearly. Second, hear with attention. And third, chant feelingly and prayerfully. So that is the best way of chanting. Then, next, how can we develop one of the 5 primary mellows with Krishna? The answer is by just continuing our Krishna consciousness, following the program that Srila Prabhupada has outlined for all of us, and progressively we will make advancement in Krishna consciousness, and at the right time, whenever it may be, in this lifetime, the next lifetime, of course we should try our best to do it in this lifetime, and whenever Krishna thinks that we are ready, He will enable us to relish this rasa. For the moment, our rasa should only be in trying to serve the spiritual master, in trying to serve the Vaishnavas, in trying to serve Krishna in the best possible way. That's all. Okay, next question is, as far as we ordinary people are concerned, our relationship with Krishna is dependent on our karma only, or is it dependent on time and the gunas? Well, our relationship with Krishna is not dependent on anything material, whether it is karma or the 3 modes of material nature or anything. It is dependent only on our fervent desire to want to love Krishna and to serve Him. That's all. Next question. Let me see. In the Veer Rasa, is there any chance of aparad or offenses towards Krishna or other cowherd boys? No, not at all. Not in Vrindavan. But if you and I try to imitate that, then yes, there will be aparad. But when the cowherd boys are fighting amongst each other or with Krishna, then there's no question of Vaishnava aparad. There's no question of Krishna aparad also, because it is happening on the topmost platform of pure love for Krishna. And Krishna actually wants it. Krishna relishes it. So no question of aparad for the cowherd boys and the other residents of Goloka Vrindavan. What is the rasa exhibited by Bhishma Dev? That's the next question. As far as the Mukhya rasa or the primary rasa of Bhishma Dev is concerned, Srila Prabhupada mentions in his purports in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam that Bhishma is situated in the Dasya rasa, the mood of servitude to Krishna. But when he's fighting the battle and he's actually shooting arrows at Krishna, then he's enabling Krishna to taste the Veera Rasa. He's also tasting the Veera Rasa at this time. Remember that Veera Rasa is a secondary rasa, Dasya Rasa is the main rasa, the Mukhya Rasa. What's the next question? How do we do pure bhakti? We perform many daily duties in serving the Lord, but how do we do it purely? By following Srila Prabhupada's instructions, the lifestyle, the program that we have, the do's and don'ts that we have, and praying to Krishna intensely, chanting very feelingly, automatically we will see the quality of our devotional service rising. Next question. If Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha were pleasing Krishna, although with no intent to do so, but as they were Jaya and Vijay, will their activity be devotional service? Can devotees who are serving a curse forget devotional service? Now, I did refer to this question briefly last time in the previous lecture. Now, when Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu were fighting with the Lord, or when they were performing their treacherous activities, they did not remember that they were Jaya and Vijay. They were completely absorbed in their moods as very powerful demons. So therefore, when they performed their atrocities or when they fought against the Lord, they were doing it in that demoniac mood. So even though they pleased Krishna, because Krishna was able to relish the Veer Rasa in the course of his fighting them, still, because they did not have the intention to please Krishna, so their activities are not considered bhakti. Right? So that's clear. So nevertheless, despite the fact that they pleased Krishna, they are not considered devotees because they were playing the role of demons. So we cannot say that because they were Jaya and Vijaya originally, constitutionally, therefore what they did is bhakti. That argument cannot be accepted because the mood in which they were placed by the arrangement of the Lord was inimical to Krishna. Okay, next. Next question is, our primary rasa with the Lord is dasya. What about secondary rasa? Because for want of these secondary rasas, I tend to turn to material sources. When we say that our primary rasa with the Lord is dasya, it is in this condition where we are now. So yes, it is Guru Das actually. The servant of the Guru, of the spiritual masters, the Diksha Gurus, the Shiksha Gurus, yes? And so we follow their instruction. As far as secondary rasa with Krishna, yes, we can relish it. For example, we are hearing about all these Hasya Rasas, the Adbhuta Rasas, the Veer Rasas, so we are relishing that. Hearing how the Veer Rasa is relished by the great devotees. Maybe to some degree we can relish Adbhuta Rasa by reflecting on by being astonished at Krishna's glorious activities and his qualities and so on. Sometimes we can relish Krishna's pastimes, so in that way we can relish the secondary rasas. Does Krishna as Paramatma enjoy fighting here in the material world? No, it is Lord Vishnu, who is also Paramatma, who actually does the killing of the demons and so on. Many Indians have Laddu Gopal. There is a sentimental attachment because it is a family deity, probably worshipped by father, then grandfather, grandmother, and the great-great-grandfather. Is it okay to have them on our altar? Well, generally, our acharyas have not spoken much about this, but personally I don't see any harm. What is the problem? If you have Laddu Gopal and you're worshipping him and loving him, caring for him, if you're doing it with genuine devotion, I personally don't see any harm in that. In fact, it's nice. Of course, our regular deities are Gaur Nitai, Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra, and then once you're initiated at home, then you could have the Radha Krishna deities and so on. Okay? One minute, what is the next question? Yeah. What determines the dominant rasa in which we establish our relationship with Krishna in this realm? What determines the dominant rasa? Well, as I said, for now, let us just focus on Guru Dasya. Serving the Guru, and let whatever rasa it is with Krishna, let it come in due course of time. Okay? Unfortunately, I won't be able to take all the questions because there are so many of them. If a non-devotee helps a pure devotee in trouble, is this devotional service? Actually, in a sense it is. It can be called Agyata Sukriti, unknowingly performed devotional credit. The non-devotee in all likelihood doesn't have the understanding that by helping a devotee, he is actually pleasing Krishna or rendering devotional service. But he does it anyway. Maybe because he has some relationship with that devotee or for whatever reason. So that is called Agyata Sukriti, unknowingly performed devotion, and that will eventually accumulate and help him to become a devotee at some point in this life or in the next life. Okay. If we reach Goloka and we do some mistake against Krishna, will he send us back to earth? Well, why would he perform some mistake if you go to Goloka? You will be already perfect. If you are not perfect, you won't be allowed into Goloka. So there's no question of making any mistakes in Goloka. And in any case, Krishna promises in the Bhagavad Gita, Yad gatva na nivartante tad dhama paramam mama. That one who returns to my abode, my supreme abode, never comes back to this material world again. Okay? And we'll take one last question. Okay. Does the free will which the Lord has given to us, or is it only available for us to choose to be material or spiritual, or does the free will also play a role in the material choices we make? I don't get the question clearly. Anyway, generally I think your question is about the free will vis-a-vis the three modes of material nature. It's a combination of the two. There is free will, but also we are very heavily influenced by the three modes of material nature, which also induce us to act in a certain way. But if by good association or by bad association, we are influenced in one way or the other, and then we misuse our free will to follow that, the bad way, then we get a bad result. But if we use our free will properly, let's say by hearing some good instructions of devotees and coming to devotional service, then we will get great benefit from that. Okay? Okay, one question here. Last question. Kindly tell us how to deal with people who are not Krishna devotees and who are always ready to let others down, who are full of negative thoughts. How to handle those people, especially in our professional life? I mean, due to these hurdles, I'm unable to continue my pure bhakti for Krishna. That is why Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Rupa Goswami, Srila Prabhupada, and all of the great acharyas have cautioned us, do not associate with non-devotees and associate as much as possible with pure devotees of Krishna. Now, it is a fact that in this world, due to various reasons, social reasons, professional reasons, it may not be possible to avoid the association of non-devotees entirely. But at least let us try to minimize that, number one. And number two, when we do associate with these non-devotees, let us try to not take pleasure in the things that they find pleasure in. They may find pleasure in going to hotels and in parties and this and that. So let us not take pleasure in those things. And definitely their negativity affects us. It definitely brings our consciousness down, undoubtedly, as you have said. Therefore, if you minimize the kind of association you have with them, and if you don't take pleasure in the things they find pleasure in, and you try to associate as much with devotees as possible, and you try to engage in devotional service like reading, chanting, hearing, then you will be able to counteract the bad effects of the negativity that is given to us by these other people. Okay, so it's quite late. I think we'll stop here. All right, so there are many other questions. I think there are 37 new messages that I can see here, but it will take a very long time. So once again, my best wishes to everybody, and I hope and pray that you will all continue to keep good health in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic, and that also all of us together will progress in our bhakti to Lord Krishna very favorably and very nicely. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
You would like